Transport sector reform is high on the government's agenda when it comes to reducing the island's carbon dioxide emissions. In this installment of Choice TV's 1.5 to Stay Alive program, we announced that on Wednesday, 18th November 2015, St. Lucia submitted its intended nationally determined contribution to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. What does this mean? Coming out of earlier talks, it was agreed that all global parties of the UNFCCC would submit a document stating what their contributions to the global climate change effort would be in reducing emissions. A primary goal listed in the St. Lucian IND document was intervention in the local transport sector to reduce our carbon footprint. Chief Sustainable Development and Environment Officer Mr. Crispin Dovey at the Sustainable Development Environment Division of the local government said that this venture is not going to be easy.
The transport sector is difficult because in the case of St. Lucia, you have 50,000-60,000 vehicle owners, each operating, making individual choices as to how they use their vehicles. So it is difficult, and especially when when you have to deal with a situation where your quote-unquote public transportation is private, right? Then you have the choices that you have to look at. Your choices are more complex, and so the transport sector, some of the interventions you would want to look at this time is the introduction of new technologies in the form of perhaps hybrid vehicles or electric vehicles and so on. We have a few already on our roads, but there's a lot more that that can be done.
Mr. Dovey added that the design of the road networks and traffic elements can also impact the carbon emissions of a country, and that the government's role would be to put in place incentives and regimes to introduce new technologies in the transport sector. The IND document also includes interventions in the power sector, an undertaking that Mr. Dovey says is easier to implement than in transport. These ideas all cost money, and in a speech, Prime Minister Dr. Kenny Anthony admonished leaders of more developed nations at the 70th UN General Assembly in September to keep their promises to help small island developing states in climate change resilience efforts.
The lethargic pace at which climate finance instruments are being capitalized indicates that the rhetoric of good political intentions is meaningless without demonstrated and tangible collective action. Mr. President, our pronouncements and commitments must be given substance if people in small island developing states like mine are to have any hope that this post-2015 development agenda will amount to something meaningful for them. We cannot continue with this diet of rhetoric, platitudes, and broken promises.
How realistic is it that countries far developed than small island developing states will agree legally to an agreement at COP21 to reduce carbon emissions as advised in the 1.5 to Stay Alive campaign? Local lobbyists and government officials like Mr. Dovey trust in the conviction of the developed world leaders.
A number of countries, most developing countries subscribe to the 1.5 limits, and a number of developed countries have actually come on board as well. They recognize that 2 degrees is too high, and so we are confident that we will get 1.5 captured in the agreement. Okay, but we want it anchored in a way that is unequivocal, right? as much so as possible. But we're pretty confident that we can get 1.5, enshrined in that final agreement.
Now that St. Lucia's document on ideas to reduce its carbon footprint has been signed, sealed, and delivered to the United Nations, you can view it on the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change website. Do stay tuned for more climate change news on Choice TV's 1.5 to Stay Alive program. I'm Jessie Leonce. See you soon.